All right, everyone. Today we are here to discuss about the third episode topic, which is decision making techniques. Now, along with decision making, what I will discuss is few other topics. Why? Because mostly in the universities, in the business schools, mostly apart from the premier business schools, mostly what you miss out is you learn the theories, but you don't know why you are learning the theories. You miss out the aspects of understanding the real context of that theory, how you will apply it in your real life. Because ultimately, when you are doing business, if you are not doing theories, if you are doing business, it's about case studies, it's about solving problems. So, case study is giving you a way to practice it before you go to the marketplace. So you apply your knowledge, you apply whatever you have gained during the course or in your life, whatever you have observed in your life around you, for your interaction with people, your understanding of the marketplace, your understanding of the business topics, whatever it is. Ultimately, you are solving problems. Since we are talking about entrepreneurship here, we will talk about solving problems creatively, if I say so. So there will be a gap. We need to fulfill that gap. How do we do that? Knowledge, skill, attitude. So the attitude will be based on entrepreneurship mindset, which we are talking about, and the skill set you have to gather from either business school or the books, or you can get it anywhere because in YouTube or in other courses you have available online where what you can study, and you can learn the concepts anywhere. You don't need to go to a business school, but if you go, you can get a degree and all that stuff. But understand the concepts fundamentally so that you can solve the problems, because ultimately you will be challenged in real life to solve the problems, and there is a great joy to solve those problems. And if you do it creatively, which will be our next topic, that creative problem solving, if we do it creatively, we are doing good resource utilization. It can be our time, it can be our energy, it can be our assets, whatever it is. We are utilizing our resources in much more efficient way, and we are also getting it done, hence we are increasing the productivity also. So we talk about that kind of business here. But let me tell you that also, Jay, why we are suffering in the art and entertainment sector. Now, if I talk about that, many people will talk behind the back, but they cannot say anything in front. Art and entertainment industry is suffering because we have few businesses developed in India, but in the art and entertainment industry, it's not that great. There is a lot of money involved, but in terms of business, you don't get that thing in the business scenario. So what do if you want to do your if you want to do something great in this industry or in this profession? You need to learn the business, as well as you need to learn about the creative side of the business, which is the most important thing because they don't get it much. So you need to be very aware of the taste, aesthetics. You need to know the consumer. You need to know how you are going to apply the business knowledge to satisfy your consumer. If the consumer is changing, you cannot be stagnant based on your ego only. You have to cater to the customers. You have to listen to the customers attentively and empathetically, so that you can understand what they are asking for. Accordingly, you can cater to the customers. But due to ego, sometimes you are like fixating on very stagnant things and you are not listening to your customers. That's a cardinal sin in business if you are not listening to your customers. Sometimes, if you know more than your customers, which is very rare in Indian entertainment business scenario, then what you can do is you can create the business accordingly. You can be a prime mover also, and accordingly, your customers will join the bandwagon because they will see something different is happening. There is an outlier, and there something is happening which we wanted to see for a long time, but nobody was providing that thing to us. It can be a good, it can be a service, it can be it can be any kind of product, but nobody was providing it. So somebody started it with a vision, and that is leadership. When you are taking that step based on your solid purpose, your vision, then you are doing these great things in life. But When you're lacking that vision, you want to be regressive, you want to do something bad in the business scenario, then you won't get all this vision. It only comes when you are very like you have a strong clarity, strong sense of clarity in terms of your purpose, doing business, vision, leadership, and everything. Then you will get myriad of options to do your business well, and accordingly, eventually, during the journey, you will find a lot of ways how you can provide those products to the marketplace, to the consumers, to the customers. But it starts with a vision. So what we will talk about today, we will start with different levels of strategy. Most importantly, we'll start with different types of generations. So I will talk about four types of generation. What we need to focus on is Gen Y, millennial, and Gen Z. So we have the baby boomers. Let me just write it down. Okay. Generations. Oh, just a second. Generations in terms of customer or consumer. The problem is we get a lot of people to talk about many bullshit stuff. But when it comes to solving the problems, there are very few. So you need to learn these concepts really well so that you can proactively solve this problem, and eventually you can be reactive or reactive also. So when the problem arises, you can live up to the situation and you can solve the problems using your knowledge. But most importantly, what you need to focus on now is Gen Y, who are the millennials. Just a second. Huh? Can you see the screen? I think so. Yeah. Okay. Millennials and Gen Z. Now, how do you define these? First, you have the baby boomers. These are our primary concerns now because that they are the youth. Now, before that, you have the baby boomers, and then you have the Gen X. So this is your first, this is your second, this is your third, and this is your fourth. In terms of in terms of age, they are older people and they are younger people. They are your consumers or customers. ঠিক আছে? So if you want to set priorities, then you have to set priorities depending on mostly Gen Y or the millennials or your Gen Z. Now I will tell you about the timeline because baby boomer is around like who are born during 1940 to 59. They are baby boomers. In your Gen X, they are your 1960 to 79 born people. Gen Y or your millennials, they are 80 to 94. They are 1980 to 94. And your millennials, who are 1995 to 2010. Year of birth. ঠিক আছে? Now these two are very important when you are talking about the you entertainment for youth. Now what they prefer? They prefer these people. They prefer dialogues, conversations, these people. Uniqueness, definitely uniqueness they will prefer. They are looking for that. Now, when you're talking to baby boomers, I mean, it varies. I'm talking about the most important things, but you can. This varies a lot because you can like adapt or you can be inspired from a lot of activities which are preferable by the baby boomers. For example, for the baby boomers, you have idealism, you have this is post-war, dictatorship, repression in Brazil. So it's like idealism, revolution. There will be some kind of revolution. So you can get motivated by this at any point of your life, especially when you're a place like Bengal. It will be idealism, revolution, collectivist approach, and it will be ideology. Ideology is a big thing for ignorance. Now, when it comes to Gen X, then it's like the political transition is there, capitalism and all these places are there. But what you can think of is materialistic. They are, but not necessarily everyone. But what you can talk about is they are very competitive. That time it was very competitive. Sense of competition is there, and also a flair of individualistic flavor. But this is not true for other cultures as well, because mostly the sample space was taken from US. So in India it varies a lot, because revolution and all these places you can take it from at any age you can have revolution. So for example, if you talk about Gen Z, they are very revolutionary in nature now. But the problem is, don't be a rebel without a cause. That is the problem. I mean, you want to fight. Just let me find the cursor again. So the problem is with the youth is, you can be a rebel without a cause, or a petty cause, or ignorant. You don't know the cause. Somebody has motivated you in a different way. So there are many options. But whether you take that decision or not, that comes from decision making. That is also a part of decision making. Otherwise, you are taking a big step and eventually you find out that whatever decisions you have made is based on false assumptions or false news, right? So the entire process is a waste. Then you have to do the damage control techniques and all these things. But before that, if you do your research well, then you will be in a better position to take better decision. This is very important. When you are doing a lot of research, you are looking at the metrics and all, you can take better decisions. Okay, so that's why research is one of the most important things you can have in any profession, in any discipline you want to have. Now status is also a thing for Gen X people. Now when it comes to Gen Y, there's a lot of globalization happening. Questions, they are asking questions and all that stuff. Experiences, they are looking for experiences. They're looking for travels. But when you are coming to the young generation, we need to mention one term which I already mentioned, that is digital natives. If you look at Gen Y people, baby boomers, Gen X, not necessary, especially in a country like India. They were not that adept with the technology and the web. So World Wide Web, when it came, it brought a revolution. When Google came, the search engine came, it brought a revolution. But before that, it was not like that. So social networks is also a great thing for the digital natives, Gen Z, because they are very much acquainted with the social networks, and that is a voice. Now social networks have got a voice. You want to disagree with something, you can raise your voice in the social network. But the digital natives were very are very adept with social networks, while you will find that many of the older generation people, or many of the people from older generation, they are not that adept with the social networks or the digital marketplace digital scenario. So they will be preferring to do that normally, the physical way of marketing and other ways of marketing. But the digital platform you cannot ignore anymore, because that has taken a lot of market share, and that is changing the perception of people, that is changing the opinions of people, and that is reflecting your consumer behavior also. So it's a two-way communication. You cannot ignore the social networks anymore. But these are your consumers and customers, and you have to cater to them. But most importantly, I will say that Gen Z, when you are providing entertainment, good entertainment, then Gen Z or Gen Y, they are very important consumers or customers. But eventually, what is happening? People who are providing bad entertainment or shallow entertainment, they have captured them with different tricks and techniques. Now they have started asking the questions. What you need to do is you need to enrich your products. You need to enhance your products so that you can live up to the expectations of the consumers or the customers. Mostly the consumers, because who are consuming, we are preferring that. So that is the thing you need to talk about. Okay, so this is regarding your a brief about your consumers, the kind of consumers you have. Now, I will quickly go to the next topic, where I will discuss a bit about the levels of strategies. Just give me one sec, I'm coming. I'm just changing the slides or the whiteboard. Yeah. Okay. So, when you talk about the levels of strategies, what you have is, if you talk about a pyramid, let me talk about a pyramid. Let's talk about a pyramid. Let's talk about a pyramid, because pyramid is a very important thing in business. uh, the bottom of the pyramid and the top of the pyramid. Generally, what we talk about is these three levels, but I will talk about another level. This is the functional level. Acha, let me tell you the topic of this levels of strategy. Here you have the functional level. What do you mean by functional level? It can be your marketing, it can be your R&D, it can be your HR, it can be your finance, etc. This is your business level. What you are doing in business level, it can be focus, it can be low cost, it can be differentiation, tactical strategies, you can go for cost leadership, so and so forth. These are the things you can go in terms of like When you are talking about levels of strategies, in the functional level, you are talking about all these things like your marketing, HR, finance, R&D, and all that stuff. When you're going to the business level, which is a bit higher, you can talk about the unit level strategies as well. You can talk about different units and how you are applying the business level strategies, like in individual units as well as those units as a group or collectively. ठीक है. And when you are going to the corporate level strategy, so cost, market focus, differentiation, and cost leadership. Market focus is the focus, is market focus, low cost, differentiation, tactical strategies, and cost leadership. Now when you're going to the corporate level strategy, then you need to think about how you are going to play in the marketplace, in the industry. This is your corporate level strategy. How you are going to have the growth, how you are going to capture the market share, right? How you are having like a competitive advantage, how you are going to have a competitive advantage. It can be how you are going to sustain that competitive advantage, how you are going to have a renewal once you have fallen, how you are going to rejuvenate yourself in the like corporate level. So corporate level is the higher level where you are looking at the business and the industry and how you are going to capture market share, growth, competitive advantage. You are going to sustain that competitive advantage. You are going for renewal and all that stuff. Coming to the business level, you are thinking about all this stuff, which is a lower level, and you do all this stuff so that you can play in the corporate level. So this focus, low cost, differentiation, and all that stuff. In functional level, you are looking at the functions and you are doing that. But there is another thing, which is the operational level, where the people are actually working there. This is where you get it done. People are working, and these functional level managers are actually these managers are actually managing these people. They are leading, and you are getting the work done by the operational level people. But as you are going to the upper side, it's the strategy, and in between there are tactics, different types of tactics. So strategy, tactics, and operational, these are the things when you do. But mostly the higher level management executives, higher level executives, they are focusing on this. This is high level. And then you are delegating your task like this to the operational level. But eventually what happens is you are getting the feedback from the bottom level also, because they are actually working on this. So they have something to say, they have some opinions. You have the insights, you are getting the feedback, and you are taking that. So it's the top of the pyramid to bottom of the pyramid, bottom to top, and you are having this communication. Eventually you are deciding your strategy, higher level strategies, and accordingly in different levels you are designing your strategy. And different levels you have different people, executives, who are deciding on those factors. But this is the thing where you have the big picture view. This is the thing where you have the big picture view. You can see everything is happening, and you can decide your higher level strategies based on all these events or all these instances, situations. And also what we talked about in the last lecture, that is priority, what you are prioritizing on. Because you remember what is important here, time management. We talked about how you are managing your time. Suppose if you are supposed to do the job of a corporate level strategist, but you are eventually working on the functional level strategist, then you are not doing your job properly. You can delegate it to the functional level strategist, but your job is to do the corporate level strategies. So how you are managing your time, again I will come back to those things: urgent, important, not, not urgent. This is not your job. How you are doing this and all these things, it matters. And also decision making is a big thing. Based on that, how you are doing the decision making. In operation level, your decision making will be based on certain things. In functional level, your decision making will be based on certain things. In business level, your decision making will be based on certain parameters and attributes. And corporate level, your decision making will be based on something. The decision level, if I talk about the decision making scenario, overall you can say that this is higher decision making. So you need to know a lot more to take this kind of decision, a lot more and objective. Sometimes in the operational level you have a lot of bias. Just a second, just give me one sec. Sometimes in the operational level you have a lot of bias. People are provoked easily. But here you need to have a lot of calm and objectivity so that you can actually look for the benefit of the company or the benefit of the nation, whatever you say, the organization. If I say it's not your personal gratification, it's something more. Okay. So overall, this is a brief introduction to your levels of strategies. And I will just quickly change this and go to the next one. Now, what we will talk about is the value chain analysis. After doing this, we will go to the decision making techniques. Because this, unless you understand this, the nitty gritty of the business, the context of the business, how you are going to apply in different levels, your knowledge and your experience, your wisdom, then it doesn't matter. So you understand the value chain, you understand the levels of strategies, how they are actually interacting with each other, if not physically, but not philosophically, but operationally or functionally, how they are connected with each other. If you understand the big picture, as I was talking about the corporate level strategy, if you understand the big picture, then you have to keep a lot in mind, like how the forces are playing. Next day we will discuss about Porter's five forces. So next day we will discuss about Porter's five forces, and you will realize that how these forces are acting. Those are the five forces. Along with that, we have other forces. Like when you are going to the corporate level to the bottom of the pyramid, and you are coming from the bottom to the top of the pyramid, there are many forces acting, and how you can relate those forces to Porter's five forces and other forces. So that is where you do the innovation, because once you understand these concepts or fundamentals really well, that is when you do solve problems in a better way. You do those innovation. But unless you get it properly, you cannot do innovation because you are stuck with the fundamentals. How can you do innovation? Right. So get your fundamentals right, and then you can think about the innovation. Here we are giving you the big picture along with different aspects of business, how the entire process works, so that you can contribute irrespective of the level you are in. You can be at operational level, you can be a functional level. But what happens is, let me tell you honestly, what happens is even when you are in the functional level or in the corporate level, in the operational level, if you have the understanding of the business, if you have the understanding of like the corporate level strategies or how the business is working, in the corporate level, then you can contribute a lot more because you have the big picture and you know how it works and where you are fitting in actually. So you are doing an operational job, you are doing a functional job, but in the, for example, in business unit, it's called there are SBUs, and over SBUs, when you go to the vice president and the senior vice president and all these positions, or CHRO, CMO, and all these places, there you are taking a lot of strategic decisions. So if you understand at least the basics, the fundamentals of it, and how the entire business is working, then you can do your job in a better way. You are in a better position to get a promotion also, because you are understanding the business as well as you are understanding the technicalities of that profession, right? Gradually you can be a part of the innovation. So that's why it is very important that you understand all these things. It is for you as well as it is for the organization, because you are giving something back to the organization. You are being a part of the organization. There is a sense of, you know belonging to that organization. So that's the part of the higher management. So that's the power of the higher management. That's the power, like the responsibility of the human resource manager, so that you feel like being a part of that entire process. You feel like being a part of that entire business scenario, so that you can contribute more. But if somebody is treating you is in a very bad way, a very bad, like treating you, you are an employee, so you are a very, you are an animal because you are an employee. That is a very bad way of doing management. Initially, in the initial phases of industrial revolution, it used to be like that. If you are in the higher, like higher level, if you are in the higher level of the business hierarchy, then people used to treat it in a very bad way, because you are like not employees, even you are like slaves. But now the scenario has changed a lot. Now you are human resources, so you are assets of the company, right? So when once you are the assets of the company, the human resource manager, the human resource strategist, the senior level managers, they have to treat you like that. And that should come in a very genuine manner, because in a very genuine way they are doing that communication. And if you are not genuine, people will get it. Trust me, after a while, your mask will fall off and people will get it. So it's how you communicate that to people, so that they are also giving it back. That's great management. That's a great way to run a company. And if you do that in the arts and entertainment, there is nothing greater than that, because you are in a creative field. But here people are focusing a lot of the advertisement sector, where you have a lot of creativity. If you do the similar kind of thing and the better things in terms of the cinematic or the film industry, then you can get a lot from these people. Because the people who are in the legal sector, who are in the operational sector, who are in the strategic sector, who are in the marketing and R&D sector, whatever it is, if they are having a sense of belonging to that company, or to the bigger purpose, which the vision which we started with, then they can contribute a lot. And they will bring the artistic sense, they will bring the artistic aspect of them, even if they are doing a very non-artistic job, but everything has something artistic to do. Whatever profession you are in, you will have something uh, where you can contribute artistically, maybe in a small manner, maybe in a larger manner, whatever it is. So if you have that sense of belonging, then your contribution can come forth in a better way, in a much better way. So that's what you need to work on. Then the company will grow automatically, because internal public, your employees, they are having a sense of camaraderie, sense of belonging, and your consumers are feeling it. Your consumers are feeling it through your product. That's a communication. Your consumers are looking at your company and looking at the dynamics of your company, and they can see that. But if you are not genuine about that stuff, that will backfire, because you are having a pretense, and that will fall off. Now, let me talk about the value chain analysis. You can have it in any industry. This is also done by Michael Porter. There are two kinds of activities, let me tell you. First, you have the primary activities, which are this, and then you have the support activities. Now, in the support activities, what do you have? First, you have the firm infrastructure. Firm means the organization. It's not the firm, মানে শক্ত firm, no. Firm means organization. Infrastructure, the way it is built, management, basic fundament foundation of the organization, finance, legal, planning, and there are other things as well. But finance is where you are talking about the revenue, balance sheet, as I talked, as I told you last day, that a balance sheet, account, like a profit and loss statement, income statement, then your financial accounting, managerial accounting, and all that stuff. Management in every way, human resource, productivity, and other things in different levels. We need talked about levels in different levels. Legal, obviously, planning, the way you are planning. Now, planning, if you talk about management, I'll talk about POSLC. This is planning, this is organizing, this is staffing, where your human resource is playing a great part. This is leading, and this is controlling. So planning is your first step. It is a big part of your infrastructure. So the planning, and then your human resource management is coming, part of your staffing. Professional development you are doing, employee relations you are doing, performance appraisals you are doing, recruiting you are doing, competitive wages you are doing, training programs you are doing. Now, understand one thing. Nowadays, as I talked about the generations, now, as I talked about the generations, now if I go back to the generation, this Gen Y, this is also very important thing. Gen Y and Gen Z, they are looking for the benefits more than the wages. So it's like the benefits are more than the wages. It's not about the wages only. What are the benefits I'm getting from the organization? So then also the culture comes forth. Technology development, how you're doing the technology integrated supply chain system, real-time sales information, and many other things. You can have AI, you can have deep learning, you can have machine learning, and other things. How you can do that? Procurement, মানে কিভাবে আমি আনছি আমার র ম্যাটেরিয়ালস এন্ড আদার থিংস। সাপ্লায়ারদের সাথে আমার রিলেশনশিপটা কি, কিভাবে আমি পারচেজ করছি সাপ্লাইজ এন্ড ম্যাটেরিয়ালস, কমিউনিকেশন উইথ মাই সাপ্লায়ার্স, রিয়েল টাইম ইনভেন্টরি, procurement. These are my supporting activities, right? And my primary activities, what I cannot forget, because I have to think this as a big picture. Initially, this is my inbound logistic. কি হচ্ছে আমার real time inbound inventory data, location of distribution facilities, trucks, material handling, warehouse, whatever it is. আমার raw materials আমার আসবে, আমি inventory করব, all these aspects. Operations যখন আসছে, standardized models আসছে, access to real time sales inventory system. These are only examples. But you have to think about inbound logistics আমার কিভাবে আসছে, operations আমার কাজটা কিভাবে হচ্ছে, outbound logistics যে আমি তৈরি করছি যে জিনিসটা, সেটা আমি কিভাবে লোকের কাছে যাচ্ছি। অর্ডার প্রসেসিং হচ্ছে, ফুল ডেলিভারি ট্রাকস, সেটা আমি দেখছি, লজিস্টিক্সটা দেখছি কিভাবে যাবে, সেগুলো সব আমি ডিসাইড করে রাখছি। এবার মার্কেটিং সেলসটা, when we are talking about marketing and sales, প্রাইসিং আমি বলেছিলাম 4P 7P and all that stuff. সো প্রাইসিং থাকছে, কমিউনিকেশন থাকছে, প্রমোশন থাকছে, products based communicated needs থাকছে, low prices থাকছে, whatever it is, 4P 7Ps and everything regarding the marketing and sales. Then you are talking about the servicing. আমার শুধু সার্ভিস করলাম তা তো নয়। ফার্স্ট হচ্ছে আমি সার্ভিস করছি, the way I am servicing my customer or my consumer, actually the customer I am servicing. So how I am delivering this, ইনস্টলেশন থাকলে ইনস্টলেশন হচ্ছে, রিপেয়ার থাকলে রিপেয়ার হচ্ছে, এবং আর যা কিছু আছে সেগুলো করছি। বাট হোয়াট পিপল মিস আউট ইজ পোস্ট পারচেস বিহেভিয়ার। শুধু যে আমি বেচে দিলাম সেটাই নয়, হাউ আই এম প্রোভাইডিং এ গ্রেট কাস্টমার সার্ভিস, অ্যান্ড দিস মেক্স এ ডিফারেন্স। দিস মেক্স এ ডিফারেন্স। দিস মেক্স এ ডিফারেন্স। And then you have your margin accordingly, primary and supporting activities এর উপর বেস করে। But this is value chain. You're creating value and you are delivering value. So in business, what you are doing is This is business what you are doing. You are creating value. So you are creating value, capture value, deliver value. Right. Now, brand is something people talk about, and your brand is something like a promise you are making to your customers. So that promise is that value you are providing, that's a part of the promise also. Something is tangible, something is intangible, but something the customers can feel about your brand, that's a big thing, right? So I will just change the slide, and straight away next I will go to the decision making techniques you have at your disposal. In small sessions, I'm packing a lot of things. So if you understand all these things in a coherent manner, you will understand everything. Then you can study individual topics, but this is how it connects. Now, when you are making the decision, then you have to think about the time thing, time perspective, because as I said, smart goals. Last day we talked about smart goals. So that's a time bound approach. It's very specific, it's measurable, it's very realistic, as well as it's very time bound, right? So, yeah, here you go. So we have the smart goals. Now, when you have the time, it has a time horizon. Time horizon means it can be a short term goal, it can be a medium term goal, it can be a long term goal. Why I am saying this? Why I am saying this is, depending on the time horizon, again this will go back to the priority, the time management thing, urgent, important, and all. When you have the short thing, you have an urgency. When you are having a long thing, that has importance but not urgency, so you can relate to it. Depending on the time horizon, you will change your decision making procedure, and also whether you are making the decision individually or for an individuals or in group. So when you are in group, it will have a group dynamics. When you are doing it individually, it will have certain factors. When you are doing in group, it will have certain factors. Eventually it will have a overlap. It will have an overlap definitely, but not necessarily each and every time. Because when you are doing a Delphi method, for example, when you are doing a Delphi method or a consensus, যদি আমি বলি এটা consensus যদি থাকে, যদি আমরা একটা Delphi method বলি, then you have to think about the group, because you are having different perspectives. Then if we talk about diversity, equality, inclusion, talking about this, you have different people in your group, so you are getting different perspectives. It's a very dynamic approach. It's a very dynamic approach. So you accordingly, you cannot do that individually, right? So depending on that, your decision making will change. Now just let me tell you some things about the decision making scenario. Value chain, I talked about it. So basically when you philosophically make a decision or intuitively make a decision, or you get it from the life experiences, যেটা হয় না আমাদের লাইফ এক্সপিরিয়েন্স থেকে we get something. So what we get is you investigate the situation in detail. First you have the goals, right? You have the smart goals. You have the smart goals, and accordingly you investigate the situation. এটা আসছে তো? আসছে না? ঠিক আছে, ঠিক আছে, ঠিক আছে, আসছে। You investigate the situation, একদম details, the way it is happening, the way it is working. Now you create a constructive environment. You create a constructive environment. It can be a constructive environment. You can think of process oriented approach. You can think of collaboration, where everybody is coming together to make great decisions regarding the problem, coming up with great solutions. So what you do here, you're doing brainstorming, creativity. It's very free flowing sometimes, especially in the creative environment. You're what you are coming up with. You're coming up with alternatives. ঠিক আছে? You are coming up with the alternatives. So you are generating the alternatives and big ideas. Big ideas. We're talking about big ideas. Nothing small about it. And then you are exploring your options. You explore your options. Eventually you weigh them also. Different factors. Based on different factors, you weigh them. Right? Now you weigh them, weigh the options, and then you choose the best. Choose the best solution. Sometimes adapt also according to the situation. Something you start with something, and then eventually, which we will talk about, you start with something and then you change, which is your heuristic approach you can take, where you can change it accordingly, according to the circumstance, according to the solution. And then you are evaluating your plan. Then you are communicating your decision. That's a great part. How you communicate your vision, how you communicate your decision, and how you take action. But before that, when you have the smart goals, these are the two things I will talk about. Here you are communicating your visions. So here you are communicating the vision. And in any point of time you can do that. Investigation your situation, you can do communicate your vision. Alternative, you can communicate your vision, so and so forth. In many places. But they are communicating your vision, and you are communicating your decision, right? This two. And the best part, if you can align these two, the decision you are taking that's aligned with your vision, your purpose. So that's a great thing to have. Okay. So that's your decision making approach. Then I will change the slide for the last time, and then in the last 15 minutes, I will just end it. Okay, so now we will talk about few techniques which you can apply regarding your decision making process. I won't mention the techniques in detail, but I will just mention names, and accordingly you can find out the techniques. But what I will mention is your emotional intelligence is one thing you can have. It will make you a better decision maker, it will make you a better leader. So emotional intelligence is very important, because when you are doing a group discussion, you are doing a decision making in a consensus approach, then what you are doing is you are actually collaborating. So you are going into a process of collaboration. You are respecting different opinions, you are respecting different perspectives. So for that also you need emotional intelligence. You are not having an emotional bias, rather you are focusing more on the vision, you are focusing more on the purpose, you are focusing more on the strategy or the big picture. So that is not dragging you down to a very like level of personal gratification. Rather you are in respecting each individual, you are respecting each and everyone's opinion, so that you can take all the perspectives into account, and you can still, without losing focus from your strategy or your vision, you can come towards a decision, right? So for that you need emotional intelligence at any point of your decision making process. Now I will talk about something qualitative, something quantitative. Qualitative I have already mentioned, and if you talk about more qualitative stuff, then I can talk about qualitative as well as quantitative. I mentioned in the first place, in very financial terms, it can be a cost benefit analysis. If you talk about in terms of finance, one of the basic things you can think of is cost benefit analysis. Boss, what is my benefit? If my benefit is more than the cost, then I will go for it. If my cost is more than the benefit or benefits I am getting from this process, then I won't go for it. Sometimes if you know that eventually you are incurring a cost, but you can see from that's what I said, in the long term vision, if you see that initially I'm incurring a loss, especially when you are becoming an entrepreneur, initially you are investing, you are incurring, you are going through a loss, but you know you have done the projection and you are very you have a strong belief that the way you are progressing, eventually you will have a lot of revenue or a lot of cash flows. So then your benefits will be in long term, your benefits will outweigh your cost. Then it's okay if you have a solid projection and you are going with that mindset. But if you are doing like a gambling, you don't know what is it about, and you are asking people to play the same game, then you are telling the ship to sink together. Maybe you are using some words which may sound good, but it's we are talking business here, man. We are talking business here. If the benefit is greater than the cost, then I am going for it. If the cost is greater than the benefit, I am not going. But if I can say that due to my knowledge, wisdom, and my projection, that I am going to have some benefits in long term or mid term, that is outweighing the cost in many ways or multiple ways, then I am taking a greater business decisions. Great business makers, great business people can do that, can do these things. Eventually, it will be more profitable. Then it's okay. But for that, you need to have a great sense of business, great wisdom of business. Then you can take all these things. Then you can take all these decisions. Otherwise, if you are starting out, if you don't have enough experience, then it might be gambling. And all business have to do with gambling. So if you do tactical or strategic gambling, then it's good. But if you are becoming a crook, then your words won't matter, and you become a nuisance to the society and to people. ঠিক আছে? So we won't talk about that here, but you should keep that in mind. All right. Now let me talk about the decision tree analysis or HRM decision making. If I talk about HRM decision making, then also functionally I can talk about marketing, finance, and HR. For example, functionally, if I talk in terms of finance, cost benefit analysis, if I talk about HRM, then I have to go for intuition as well as the psychometrics. So if I talk about HRM, if I, sorry, if I talk about HRM, then I'm having my data plus my insights and intuition. I'm having both, right? So quant আমার এখানে আছে, আমার quant আমার এখানে আছে qualitative data. But depending on that, I'm taking my decision. But since we are talking about HRM, we have to believe, we have to believe in something greater, which is more than the data, so that we can take the best resources. Otherwise, you can have like a great grades and all that stuff, but eventually you will not fit into that position. So your business will suffer. That's why a great HR manager is an asset for this country, for this organization. Then you have the weighted scoring method. You have the weighted scoring method where you are scoring and weights and all that stuff. I'm just telling you the names and then I will go to that. There is a technique called the nominal group method. Heuristics, I already talked about heuristics. Influence diagram and approach. How much influence an action has or a people have. You can use the influence in different ways. Influence diagram approach. So depending on the influence, you are taking the decisions. Possibility ranking. There is a thing called the step ladder technique. There is a thing called the didactic interaction. There is a thing called conscientious mapping. It's a very group behavior. You're doing it. And there is Delphi method, as I already talked about, when people are coming together in a group environment and you're doing it. Also, in the first lecture, we talked about SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we talked about PESTEL. It never gets old. No matter whenever you are, whether you are starting a business or in whatever phase you are in business, SWOT and PESTEL, these are your assets. These will help you all the time. And ability to take criticism, that's a very important thing. When you want to take criticism in business, if you cannot take constructive criticism, then you should not be in business, because you are not, I'm not raising a child here that I will do something and you will come with me with your complaints and all. I can still listen to you attentively, but we are talking business here. So be very aware of taking uh, you know uh, constructive criticism. Otherwise you should not be in business. Then we have one thing called decision matrix. Matrix is a very important thing because depending on the factors, you can do that. Multi-voting is an approach, opinions and preferences you are having. There is a scientific method also. Scientific method in the sense, when you have a research, you have a hypothesis, you have a problem solving approach, and then eventually you are coming up with a decision, taking the scientific research approach. There is a method called tiered voting, very similar to multiple voting, but different tiers you are using. There is a thing called pros and cons list. What is a pro? One is a pro means যেগুলো হচ্ছে আমাদের ভালো জিনিস, con হচ্ছে যেগুলো খারাপ জিনিস। তাই জন্য আমরা বলি না, যখন একটা when I am trying to buy a product, that is also a decision making approach. You will see in the websites they are using this thing, pros and cons. If you buy this products, these are the pros. If you buy these products, these are the cons, and then you outweigh those factors, and you weigh those factors, and then you decide accordingly whether your cons are outweighing your pros or your pros are outweighing your cons. Sometimes it's very subjective. You are going for these attributes, that's why you are going for the product. Someone else will go for another attribute or another set of attributes. He or she will go for another way of buying that product. So it's a very subjective process, but you can still objectively decide the pros and cons accordingly. Then you, depending on the customer, you can have. So এটা একটা হলো। Now if I talk about in a probabilistic or statistical terms, then you can understand these are the very important things. EMV, there is a thing, then decision theory, decision tree analysis. This is very important. Decision tree analysis. This is like, as I talked about, subjectivity. You can have a lot of subjectivity, right? When you are talking in terms of insights or individualistic opinions you are taking into consideration, then you can have subjectivity in some processes. Now, towards that, when you are focusing your decision based on data, there are some processes where you will get mostly objective opinion, objectivity you will prefer in these scenario. So what will happen is, decision tree, you are straight away doing this, you are starting out with this, there is a chance of happening this, and there is a chance of not happening this. So even so the sum of these probabilities will become one. Then if this happens, then this will happen, then if this happens, this will happen, if this happens, this will happen, if this happens, this will happen. So sum of this is one, sum of this is one, and then eventually you can do this also, this do also, depending on that. Now you multiply this and you do the summation and you figure out whether you should go for the decision or not. For example, if I talk about a case study, suppose you are trying to build a plant, right? If you go for this investment, then you are going to like the probability will be 0.6. If you are starting out with this kind of investment, then your probability will be 0.4. Eventually the next set of like instances will fall up, fall in the line depending on this. If you choose this is your like primary decision, and based on that these decisions will be taken. And if you don't take that decision, the probability is 0.4, then these decisions will happen. Maybe you won't be having that plant because this is not fruitful for you, but in this case you are having that plant. If you have that plant, there are also different options. Which one are you going to choose? So you have a probabilistic approach with decision tree. And even if you are not including the probabilistic approach, then still you have the flow of that diagram. Yes or no, yes or no. If this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. So there is a chance, there is a thing, yes or no. If you do that probability part, you are involving that quant approach. So there you have less subjectivity. ঠিক আছে। আরেকটা হচ্ছে কনজয়েন্ট অ্যানালিসিস বলে একটা মেথড হয়। লেট মি জাস্ট, আচ্ছা থাক এটা, because this is important. আরেকটা হয় কনজয়েন্ট অ্যানালিসিস. This is very good for market research. When you are doing a brand positioning, sorry, conjoint analysis. This is a very good thing when you are doing market research. When you are doing a brand positioning, when you are looking at the attributes, consumer behavior, In all these things, consumer behavior, in one way you can look at the heuristics, you can look at weighted scoring, nominal group, and all these things. Delphi method, you can look at feedback from people, of different people. But when you are talking about conjoint analysis, you are focusing it in terms of statistics, right? So attributes, consumer behavior, brand positioning, market research, everything is coming based on statistics. Very important thing from market research. Cost benefit analysis, I have already talked about. Now, affinity diagrams, that's a mind mapping. I will come to that. But before that, for complex decisions, you have one thing called AHP, analytical hierarchical processing. It's a very important thing. There is a thing called linear programming, LP. You have conditions and you have equations. You are solving it, finding the values. And you have heard of one great thing, that is game theory, payoff matrix. We'll talk about that in some other session. Well, you understand the name of it. Great thing in economics, in your operational research, great thing, payoff matrix and game theory. And another thing is there, multi criteria decision making. Multi criteria decision making. Let me take it there. Multi criteria decision making. Decision making or analysis, this is called MCDM in short. ঠিক আছে, তাহলে these are the things. আর affinity diagrams একটা থাকে, affinity diagrams is more towards the qualitative side. What is an affinity diagram? Affinity diagram এ আমি ক্লাস্টার বলবো না, বা গ্রুপ করছি সিমিলার কাইন্ড অফ থিং বেসড অন ওয়ান থিং। আমি সিমিলার কাইন্ড অফ কিছু, অনেক সময় কি হয় অ্যাফিনিটি ডায়াগ্রামটা আমরা না বুঝে কি করে ফেলি, আমাদের নোটিশ বোর্ড বা একটা পিন বোর্ড একটা আছে যেখানের মধ্যে আমি আমার ওই স্টিকি নোটস গুলো বা কালারফুল নোটস গুলোকে রাখছি, ঠিক আছে, অমুকটা আমার করতে হবে, আই হ্যাভ টু ডু দিস, I have to do that, and these are the activities I have to perform. Now, if I take 3 or 4 things from all those activities and I'm grouping it based on a purpose, লার্জ অ্যামাউন্টস অফ ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ ডেটা আমার আছে, সেটা হতে পারে আইডিয়াস, হতে পারে ওপিনিয়ন্স, হতে পারে ইস্যুস, হতে পারে, and I'm organizing those things into groupings based on their natural relationship. So that's affinity diagram. It's a very important tool. Naturally, আমরা when we don't know the advanced techniques, we do a lot of affinity diagram. কি হচ্ছে, আমি হয়তো যেটা করি যে এইটা 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 এরম আছে, এইটা 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 এরম আছে। Now I am based on the natural relationships or something, some factor, I am grouping them. So এটা like affinity diagram. বাট আরেকটা যেটা আমি বলবো এখানে, টনি বুজান বলে একজন ছিলেন, টনি বুজান, he created a thing called mind map. So that's the qualitative approach. As I said, na, a decision tree, when we are not involving the probabilistic part or a chance yes no যখন আমি করছি না, I'm not only focusing on the dichotomy or the yes no part, then Tony Buzan was doing a lot of mind map, যেটা we can have a hybrid approach from all these things. For example, এইটা হচ্ছে, তার সাথে এইটা হলো, তার সাথে এইটা হলো, তার সাথে এইটা হলো, তার সাথে এইটা হলো, এটার সাথে আবার এইটা হলো। It's very much like the decision tree, but it is having more options, and accordingly you are deciding this and that and that. So you are just mapping the entire activity. If you take that decision, these are the things that are going to follow. If you take that decision, these are the events that are going to follow. So accordingly you are doing the mind map, and you are taking the decisions, weighing the factors, and intuitively or based on intuition you are taking that decision. But when we are doing the decision tree, it's very yes, no, flow chart you are doing, not necessarily, but when you are doing the probabilistic part, then you have the thing. 0. 0.6 if you take that decision, 0.4 if you take that decision. Next thing, if you take that decision and if it is having a conditional probability of, for example, like 0.55, then this is going to be 0.45. You have to take it into consideration, either or, right? Accordingly you find out the final probability, and this is the thing you are going to choose. Maybe based on this you are going to choose, doing a summation, you are going to choose this. But you have this option here in the Tony Buzan's mind map and other things. Free flowing, sometimes it's called the free flowing mapping. So you have an activity, accordingly you are deciding what are the outcomes of that activity in different ways. You're doing that, it's more free flowing. So you have different options. I give you like names of different options you have. Gradually in some other sessions we will try to explain it. But eventually if you talk about an introduction to decision making, or with a larger business context, I think this will help you a lot. So yeah, I mean this is more about it. And like करून, share करून, subscribe करून, share it with people. Especially what I am doing is, if you are in the entertainment sector, if you are looking towards doing business, if you are in the medical profession, if you are doing engineering profession, and you are going for an executive MBA, or you are going for like upgrading your skills, then this lecture will help you to understand the business in a better way. Then you can understand the individual topics, you can research on those topics, and it will give you more insights. But this is the big picture, how everything is connecting, how everything is connected together, how everything is happening at the same time. Because ultimately, as I started with, what I started with is, eventually entrepreneurship is about solving problems. When you are doing business, you are solving problems. You are earning revenues, that's okay. You are doing profit maximization, that's okay. But you are solving some problems. There is a problem, whether it's social in entrepreneurship, whether it's commercial entrepreneurship, there is a problem which you are going to solve. Now these are the set of things on tools you have which you can apply to solve those problems. But if you don't see the big picture, you will be lost in the trivial details, which happens a lot in the operational level, which happens sometimes in the functional level also. But if you understand the bigger strategic levels, then you can relate to it, how you are contributing to the big picture. That is the question you should ask. Then you can come up with more options to solve those problems. You can contribute to your country, you can contribute to your organization, you can contribute to your personal life also, right? So these are the tools you have. Understand it. Next day we will talk about creative problem solving. That is not problem solving anymore, that is creative problem solving. So what does it mean? We will apply design thinking methods, we will apply lateral thinking methods, and different other techniques. We will play with it a lot. If you have a problem, you can look at it from this perspective, or you can look at it from other perspectives as well. That will be very creative, and we will keep solving the problems. We will take a big problem, we will break it down into chunks, and we will solve it in chunks, so that you can ultimately, eventually, you are solving the big problem. So different way of looking at the problem. But first you need to define the problem. For that you need to ask questions. If you can define the problem, if you can ask the right questions, then you can find better solutions and you can take better decisions. How you can take the decisions? Based on all these things. Okay? Thank you so much for being with us.